Good morning. Morning. So we're live right now, so welcome to our Transform Westside Summit. For those that don't know me, I'm John Ahmann. I'm one of our co-hosts for our summit this morning. I'm excited because we have, if you've been a regular attendee, we have some other co-hosts that aren't here this morning, but I'm excited about our other co-host.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Candace Wheeler. I'm the Communications Manager for Westside Future Fund. I am also a proud Spelman alumna.
That's my turn. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I always like to start to do a little bit of overview of our program this morning, but I want to first start with who's a first-time attender of our program this morning. Any folks here for the very first time? Will you mind raising your hand? All right, welcome. Any others? Okay, great. So for our program this morning, we're going to begin, as we always do, in just a couple minutes with a devotion. I'm excited that this morning our devotion speaker is Winston Taylor. I'll say more about him in a minute. And then, after we do the devotion, we're going to move into the program part of our morning. And this morning I'll be hosting a conversation with Dallas Smith. Thank you for being here. Dallas is a like you see when co-hosts have people up, you have to show their book right away. So he has a great new book out, but we're having a conversation. He's also the chair-elect, among other achievements, of the Westside Future Fund Board of Directors. And for those that come regularly, typically we have the chairs in rows, but we got a lot of good feedback from a couple summits ago when we did the table setting, because a key goal of our summits is to build community by getting to know one another, right? And in our summits, when we have the rows, we do the introductions so people can get to know each other. But we thought, because of the feedback coming out of the last session about doing the tables, that I'm going to host a conversation with Dallas for a bit. Then we're going to take a table break, all right? And it'll be around 8:25ish or so. But in the table break, this is where we want y'all to get to know one another. So in the table break, we want you to start by introducing yourselves around the table. So right when the table break starts, take the time to say who you are, where you're from, so you know each other around the table. And then about 10 minutes or so, you're going to have time for just to talk about whatever you want to talk about, what you're hearing on the show or whatever occurs. And then we're going to come back out of the table discussion, and then we'll take Q&A from the audience, with Dallas. And as we always do, we'll wind up about 9 o'clock. So that's our program this morning. So we're excited about it. And we have a survey, too, to make sure you fill out and let us know how you thought the program went this morning. Yes, with the QR code.
Yes, so each of you should have this at your seat as a QR code. I think you all know how this works, but please point your phone at the QR code. The survey only takes a few minutes, but your feedback is invaluable to us. We want to make sure that these summits are what everyone is looking for. It's a place for us to network, get good information, so we'd really appreciate your opinions. And then also, please get connected with us. So we're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and if you're watching at home on the live stream, please subscribe and follow us on YouTube. And there are plenty of great stories on our Stories of Impact blog that we'll be sharing. Also, if you have any ideas about stories that we can be sharing from the community, please reach out to me after the program. I'm going to turn it over to you, John.
All right. Thank you. All right. We'll give her a round as our first. Thank you. Yeah, please check our Stories of Impact, because Candace is a journalist, has been a journalist, and is great about getting out there and doing more storytelling. So we're really trying to do a lot more of that, and really appreciate all that she's doing. So please check it out. So for our devotion, as we always have grounded our devotions, as folks know, in drawing lessons from Nehemiah. So the story of Nehemiah rebuilding Jerusalem, and take inspiration from that in terms of our rebuilding on the west side. And as I always do, I'm going to read out loud a devotion statement that you can see, but just as a grounding before we begin our devotion. It's become our tradition to begin our meetings with a positive, inspirational message from a member of our community. Recognizing that many in our community are driven by their spiritual faith to participate in the Westside revitalization effort, the time at the beginning of our meetings is an opportunity to share various inspirational reflections. While the speakers may articulate their personal faith, it's meant to be inclusive, inspiring, and meaningful with the story of Nehemiah as our guide. So I'm grateful this morning that Reverend Winston Taylor, who's been working on the Westside for a long time and founder of the Beloved Community, Inc., and I got to know Winston. Well, before I got to know Winston, I got to know something that he's been very passionate about, I think, since about 1997, if I remember right, Winston. But it's the old St. Mark's Church at the corner of Cameron Alexander and James P. Brawley Drive. So driving past that church, seeing how wonderful it was, and at some point asking around about who owned that church, I was introduced to Winston, and we actually had a very interesting conversation over lunch here at the gathering spot, right, Winston? A very interesting conversation. And since then, he has been a great friend to me. He's been a great mentor, and he's been a great leader on behalf of the West Side. And so, with that, we invite you to come on up and share some inspiration.
Good morning. Hoping everyone is well this early in the morning. I'm not a particular morning person. That's when you guys don't see me here often. But it is a pleasure to be here with all of you this morning. As John says, I'm going to cut through the chase. I don't particularly hang around and do much chattering. For inspiration this morning, I want to talk about miracles. In order to do this impossible work that we are doing that is considered to be building Jerusalem, you're going to have to believe in miracles. Let me say that again. In order to do the work that we've been tasked with and many of us have been burdened with, you're going to have to believe in miracles. When you look around and really truly understand, and the reason I want to go back there because King Cyrus was not necessarily what we would consider a Christian believer. Come on, Taylor, teach. But he did believe in miracles. Come on, somebody. In fact, he knew miracles exist. And many of you, whether you consider yourself believer or a Christian or Muslim or whatever, we all consider ourselves people of faith. And I would hope that your faith includes miracles. The miracle to be able to stand in this work, it's a long time. See, again, it didn't just start. This work had been going on for years. Because King Cyrus had wrote a decree and started this work when they built the what? The temple. And even after building this beautiful temple and being given all this precious gold and everything, Nehemiah comes back and asks about the condition of the people, and they say, we are a what? Reproach. We're in shame. Oh, it's still much work to what? Be done. And when you're doing this kind of work, sometimes you get a little what? Tired. See, I can talk about the truth. You don't get a little tired, you get a whole lot tired. And you just want to throw in a towel and say, I'm tired, I'm done. Can we be truthful this morning? Because in order to get the work done, you're going to have to be what? Truthful. That's my second piece. Not just faithful, but you're going to have to now be what? Truthful. Because the same place we started at, we're going to have that same energy as we march through here. I played back in my mind this morning when we went back and just right before the games, we were talking about how this area was a reproach, that the world is getting ready to come here and how it's looking. And if you look around, it's been however many years, but it still looks I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings because a lot of people, saying, well, we done spent a whole lot of money and we done this and we done. Yes, we have. And yes, we have. And yes, we have. But again, when you look at the stories, the same had taken place with Ezra. But now the report comes back to Nehemiah saying, it's bad. It's real bad. And the people are what? Still in a shameful what? Place. And then lastly, it's going to continue to cause us and make us reflect and relook at things in terms of as we do this building. Don't get stuck. Many of us have gotten stuck on what we're doing and looking at things in this very little silo. When you look at the work that they did and it was required for the temple building versus what Nehemiah comes in and doing, it's in essence a beautification project. And if I was to mention a beautification project right now, people would be pissed off. Well, Winston, people going homeless right now. They this, that, and other. Well, everybody ain't going homeless. Everybody don't need a house. Some folks just trying to get up and down the sidewalk. Some folks just trying to get down the sidewalk and children trying to get to school. Come on, Taylor, teach. And they're having to go through all types of unpleasant scenery just to get to Hollis. That we done spent a ton of money in what? Redoing. My last piece, don't get stuck, y'all. Don't get stuck in your silo. Look around and allow God to give you eyes to see with. That's the last piece. Whether you're Nehemiah, whether you're Cyrus, whoever you are, you're going to have to allow God to give you eyes for direction. Lean not to your own understanding. You're going to have to allow God to use you because this is God's work. If it was left up to me, I'd be down on the boat. We're taught to get to this place, Dallas, from a poor little kid coming from Carver Homes. But God had another plan. I don't necessarily believe in things as many of you believe in things, but I do believe in miracles. And I know to get to this place in time, it's taken a miracle to get me here. Now, I don't know about many of you, because many of us like to talk about how we self-made. How we I. Do you believe in miracles this morning? Can you take a step back and remember how you got to where you are now? I believe it was a miracle that has brought each one of us here today, that's allowing us to stand here. The things that we've been through, the things that has brought us to this place. And it's going to take a miracle, miracles, for this work to be accomplished. My message is simple this morning. You're going to have to believe if we're going to complete this task. And I'm one that believes in completing the task. It's not enough to say I tried. Come on, somebody. I ain't a try. Come on. I believe in winning championships. I believe in completing the task at hand. No excuses. No failure. The end message of the Bible says, to him that overcometh shall wear a crown. Go get your crown of victory. Complete the task, the burden that has been placed upon you, that all will what? Rejoice. And it says in Nehemiah, and they all what? Rejoice. Thank you this morning for your time. Thank you, sir.
So, Pastor, I appreciate your sermon. I heard one word a few times: miracles. Miracles. Do you believe in miracles? I appreciate we all have our own faith. For me, I imagine God is empowered to bestow miracles. And I think I first heard from Ambassador Andy Young that coincidences are God's way working anonymously. And what I love about these summons are the coincidences that occur from the connections, the miracles. And so I appreciate that reminder, Pastor. And as a kind of a setup to introduce, because what I've often reflected and what I love about Atlanta is we have the resources to do what needs to be done on the West Side. It's not a matter of, it's a matter of our hearts and our connections and our commitment. But it's not really, given Atlanta's enormous success, a resource question. It's a heart question. But the coincidence is back to the believing in miracles. When I was, talking to Dallas and mentioning St. Mark's that Winston has been championing now, he said, "Well, that's where I was baptized." Think about that. Coincident? Miracle? So, great to have you here this morning to remind us of that. And let's thank him one more time for that great. All right, so Dallas is coming to just a second, but he's the founder and CEO of T. Dallas Smith & Company. Began his career in 1982, but I know from reading his book, his career began far before that in terms of his vision for what he wanted to accomplish. The first African-American broker at Cushman & Wakefield in 1989. He ran the brokerage division for H.J. Russell & Company, and in 2006 opened his own company. And he has been a trailblazer, and he grew up on the West Side, and that's why I'm excited to talk to him this morning. He's our incoming board chair. As he comes up in just a second, I do also want to recognize I have our current chair here, Dr. Beverly Tatum. Yep, thank you. And back to some great coincidences, Sylvia Russell also on our board, and right. I got to know Dallas when you're married to, I know we're all sorry he passed, but Herman Russell. So thank you. It was actually Sylvia that connected us to Dallas for the Westside Future Fund Board. And so with that, we're going to play a short video, and while the video plays, we're going to come on up.
All new at 6 now, and growing fears over the future of a historic black hospital. This is on Atlanta's West Side.
Plans are in the works to adapt an old building that used to house McClendon Hospital. Reporter Amanda Rose explains how community members are advocating for its preservation.
Back in the Jim Crow era, the hospital served Atlanta's black community when other hospitals in the area wouldn't. But now its future is uncertain.
If we erase our history, how do we really continue to tell our story?
T. Dallas Smith was born right here in 1962.
The fabric of this neighborhood is who I am.
The dilapidated structure was once McClendon Hospital, founded by Dr. Frederick Earl McClendon and his wife in the historic Hunter Hills neighborhood. Opening in 1946 and operating into the 80s, the hospital provided medical care to Atlanta's Black community.
These resources didn't exist for this population at the time.
Historic Atlanta's Charlie Payne says there was only one other hospital like it nearby, Harris Memorial Hospital. It's the last of 3 buildings making up the McClendon Hospital complex.
Really, it's becoming a dire situation that the entire memory of this hospital might be lost to a bulldozer.
This is our history. It's not their history or my history or your history. It's our history.
The Atlanta Preservation Center tells us inquiries to the property's owner haven't been returned.
We haven't had much communication.
Right now, he says the plans are to adaptively reuse the structure, but what that will look like is unclear, and that's not sitting well with McClendon babies.
It's just an investment for them. That's it. No ties. No meaning behind it.
He can build a home anywhere, but do you have to take a piece of our history? And that is the question.
We reached out to the property owner for comment, but haven't heard anything back. In Atlanta, Amanda Rose, Atlanta News First.
All right.
All right.
Well, thanks for being up here this morning.
It's a blessing to be here. Good Dr. Reverend Pastor Taylor, thank you for sharing that about believing in miracles. Me being here is indeed a miracle. And the fact that I wasn't just baptized at that church, St. Mark, that was my church. We left the community and moved to Campbellton Road when a lot of the folks moved. But the idea of how all this all came together is just grateful to be here in front of folks who love the Westside.
Thank you. I know some of the audience kind of know why you're passionate about that, but maybe kind of answer kind of 2. One, a little bit about, for those that don't know you as well, where you grew up, and then also, because I know it feeds right into this story, your early remembrances of the Westside when you grew up.
So I like to say, this is not my own saying, this is from Rap from Ben Hill. I'm Atlanta born, Atlanta bred. When I die, be Atlanta dead. And it was Hunter Hill that made me. I grew up off of Simpson Road on Childs Drive. And for me, it was paradise, quite frankly. I went to E.C. Clement Elementary School, went on to Turner High School. But my parents were hardworking people. My mother kept kids in the house. Everybody called her auntie. All the kids, she's raised a lot of kids. In fact, the guy who's doing the recording here is actually my cousin, David Herring. She used to keep him too. Back in the back. And so when I came in, it was getting me wired, like, oh, that's my cousin. What are you talking about? So his father and my mother were first cousins. So the idea of my house was always full of kids, full of love. My dad drove a taxi for Simpson Road Cab Company and worked at Lockheed. There was the shrimp boat right up the street. There was the Tasty Dog. There was the bowling alley. There was a movie theater, Cooper's Drug Store. It was paradise, and people took care of one another. I remember the first time I got a real whooping was because I didn't speak to Miss Jones on my way to school that morning. I was a little kid. I'm kindergarten, maybe 6, 7. I'm not kindergarten, first grade maybe. And Miss Jones spoke that morning. My name growing up was Ty. Everybody in the neighborhood called me Ty because my first name is Tanalo. That's a whole nother story. Filipino name in the Hunter Hill with that name, black folks, we're going to turn it down to the shortest name we can possible. Came 2 letters, T-Y, Ty, so I became Ty. That morning, Miss Jones said, good morning, Ty. I didn't feel like speaking. Walked on, school. I came home that day. My mom opened the door with a switch. I'm getting a whooping. What? You didn't speak to Miss Jones this morning? I got a whooping for not speaking. I'm crying. I had to go walk back across the street. Miss Jones, I'm sorry for not speaking. That was the neighborhood I grew up in. Everybody took care of one another. And neighbors had the opportunity too. If you did do something, you could have gotten a whooping from them too. So kids worry about cops and stuff now. I wasn't worried about no cops. I was worried about Lena and Glenn Smith, Willie Glenn Smith to be exact, my daddy, who was a military guy, Air Force, 82nd Airborne, paratrooper. We worked at Lockheed. He had hands the size of a baseball glove. So I never got a whooping from my dad. I got the threat of a whooping once. Did something I wasn't supposed to do. Mom said, Dad, come home. So I was used to getting whoopings from my mother. My mother would simply give you a switch. You had to go out and get your own switch. Have your own switch. My mom, you pull pants leg up, and she'd give you a whooping. That was my mama's method. So when I was going to get a whooping from my dad, I assumed he had the same method. He did not have the same method. So he came in the room. He said, take your clothes off. I said, man, I got my pants leg up. This leg is right here, bro. You take your clothes off. So he goes out, and he comes back. I got on my little white T-shirt, a little tight whiteies. Didn't I tell you to take your clothes off? He walked back out. So now I'm butt naked. All I remember is he did this. The belt went out like a bolt of lightning. The next thing I knew, I woke up on the bed. So I don't know if I actually got a whooping or not, or if I just passed out because of the belt. So I never got a whooping again from Dad. But it was pride in our, the yard looked like Turner Field. Dad, he had free labor, number one. I had to cut the grass. We took care of the yard as if our lives depended on it. My dad loved three things. Well, he loved his family, loved the yard, loved the Atlanta Falcons. We've had Falcons season tickets since 1968. And so when I tell you I love this city, love this town, I love it. But my parents, we moved in 76 to College Park.
You were 13, right?
14.
14.
And I was very upset with my parents. Both my sisters graduated from Turner High School. And they were pretty girls. So all the brothers in the neighborhood, the big boys, they always took care of me. Ty, you need anything? No, I thought it was me. I didn't know until later I realized they were trying to get with my sisters. So, but it was paradise. And moving to College Park, and we were the first black family on our street, it was a rude awakening for me. And, but my friends were still back in Hunter Hill. So Tip Green, his name was Herman, we called him Tip. It was me, Tip, and Eric, the closest, like the three amigos, who still lived on Childs Drive, and I spent my time over there. Just loved the neighborhood, missed the neighborhood. You have a big part of me coming back over here, but we'll have that conversation.
So and I was really reading because, you know, you and I are pretty close in age. I'm an Atlanta native. I grew up on the east side. I don't think I came any further west than the stadium when I was growing up, frankly. I was trying to, but what you remember, when I appreciate it, is a thriving, loving ecosystem.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's not surprising you wouldn't have been over here. I never saw any white people in my neighborhood. 0 white people. Not saying I don't like white people, I'm just stating a fact. There was 0 white people. We did have one white person who taught at our school, Mrs. Lockwood, and she was a sweetheart. Now, as a 60-year-old man, I understand that she was coming to that school to make a difference. But at the time, she was just my teacher. And she had us reading, we're in the 3rd grade, reading on the 8th grade level. She was a very talented teacher. And so in my mind, she was such a sweetheart that when we moved to College Park and I'm meeting more white people, the assumption for me was they were going to be sweethearts too. Then I realized that was not the case. But it was a very different place. Now, mind you, it was white before we got there. And whites moved out of that neighborhood. But again, I didn't know anything about this. I wasn't raised in a way where we talked about race. We never really talked about race. Again, everybody in the neighborhood was black. So the issues of race never really came up. Our issues were always, we didn't have gangs back then. We had families. So there were certain families who had 15 kids, the Coopers, the Thrashers, and the Trices. They all had like 12, 13, 14. So if you hit one Trice, you was about to get beat up by the other 13. Or if you, so you just knew not to mess with the families, but for the most part, you got along with everybody. So if there was any issue, it was because you did something. It wasn't just because you were black. Right. That's what happened to me when I went to College Park. In fact, the first day I got to College Park, the family across the street put a for sale sign in the yard the day we moved in. I marched out, make sure we saw it, then they came back, closed the door. And I said to my parents as a 14-year-old, that's ironic, we're moving in and they're moving out. My dad said, well, get in the house. I had no idea what was going on. So to tell you how naive I was, I said, Dad, I'm getting ready to go ride my bike, this same neighborhood. And I didn't get around the block good. Car, 3 young guys pull up, windows come down, and they say, get out of my neighborhood, nigga, and start throwing rocks and cans at me. Now, my reference point was Hunter Hill. If something like that happened in Hunter Hill, it was because you did something to somebody. I'm a 14-year-old kid trying to reason what was going on. Then I realized this had nothing to do with something I did. It was about who I was. And so I pedaled back home. My parents, obviously your parents know when something's wrong. And my mother's like, boy, what's wrong? I said, nothing. What's wrong with you? Nothing. What's wrong with you? Nothing. And I described that, John, as the first razor blade that I had to swallow.
Right.
Because that particular day, my parents were so happy. My mom was, putting up curtains. My sisters helping them put it up, and my dad was in the corner painting. So I felt like if I shared this issue, if it just happened to me, I would ruin their day. And I didn't want to ruin her day. And so my mother died in 2020, my dad 2010. I never shared that story with them. In fact, my sisters didn't know about it until I put it in the book. And they said, why didn't you ever say anything about this? I said, I didn't want to ruin anybody's day. And the reality of it was I wasn't mad at the 3 boys. I was mad at my parents. And I was mad at my parents because it moved me out of Hunter Hill. That's what I was upset about.
Yeah, and on that, because I've heard you speak this in the forums, but you're in a thriving black ecosystem at the time for Atlanta's journey. Yes. Why would your parents, what happened?
The idea was, it was, I hate to say it this way, but I really feel like it was the okie doke. Everything was going to be better because we were moving to white neighborhoods. I think we believed that. Dr. King's dream was the integration and, the grass was going to be greener on the other side. I think we really believed that. I think my parents really believed that. But the reality of it was we moved into a neighborhood that really didn't want us in the first place. And so, but I'm a firm believer, John, everything happens for a reason. There were instances when I got there, I met 2 young guys, Stacy and Troy Gibbons, who, I went to Lakeshore High School, which was less than 5% black folks when I got there. They were glad to see me, I was glad to see them. And so we said, hey, let's get together. End up visiting them, going to their house. Stacy's my age, 14, his brother Troy is 13. And I walk into their house and they're having a full-blown conversation about, they're having an argument. The older brother's telling the younger brother, you won't be able to afford a Porsche 911. You'll just be in your residency. And then both sides of their room were what we would call vision boards now. They both had Morehouse pennants on both sides. One was going to go become a dentist. The other was going to be a surgeon. The other was also going to be an Air Force pilot. They had their entire lives mapped out on this wall. Now, for me, on my wall, I had a picture of Dr. J and Shaka Khan. So I didn't, the idea of being exposed to this was, as a 14-year-old, was very earth-shadowing to me, because now I'm walking back home and I'm thinking to myself, like in Ty, man, you got to get your stuff together, bro. You're 14 years old. You've been here your whole life. You don't even figure nothing now. You don't know what you're going to be when you grow up. What are you doing, man? You're a loser. So everything happens for a reason. So that really motivated me to do the things I was ultimately going to end up doing now. So
No, I appreciate it. wanted to read something, and I think it's okay for me to read it because you put in your book the vulnerability you learned is critical for leadership. And I found this a very vulnerable poem, and I wanted to read it because I wanted to. It's a poem that Dallas wrote. It's in the book, Tears of Black Folk. Tears of Black Folk, May 1996. This is right before we were hosting the Olympics. The tears of black folk could equal every pond, lake, river, stream, creek, ocean, every wet spot there is on this planet, and there would still be tears remaining. Why? For being forsaken by each other, our other brother that is, tears for every injustice. And Lord knows there have been so many tears for not getting the benefit of the doubt, tears for doing better than most and still not being good enough, tears for being, tears for dreaming, tears for surviving, tears for being judged collectively and not individually. Sometimes I understand why the sweet by and by is so sweet. Sometimes I want to give up, but I know that will only prove their case, so I persist, and I believe that just around the corner, there will be no more tears.
That was a very, very tough time. I was at Cushman & Wakefield, first black broker at Cushman & Wakefield. So to put it in perspective, Cushman was owned by the Rockefellers. So the MO for Cushman, if you didn't come from money, you didn't work at Cushman & Wakefield. And as I mentioned to you, I grew up on the Westside. My parents drove, blue-collar people. And it was just a very tough existence. It was 40 brokers and me. And I describe it that way because that's what it felt like. It was very clear that I wasn't supposed to be there. Every day I came into the office, it was kind of like, he's back. It just, so having to live through that. And mind you, I started with, in the business in 1982. This is 1989. A guy by the name of Thomas W. Tiff brought me into the real estate business. Which is a miracle when we talk about miracles, Pastor. Mr. Tiff brought me into the real estate business in 1982. Tiff County, Tiff College, University of Tifton. That's the family that brought me to the real estate business. Now, the reality of it is Tiff's father was the grand dragon of the Ku Klux Klan in Tifton. So to bring in a guy like me into commercial real estate in 1982, you're talking about miracles, brother. So because of Mr. Tiff, I knew how to work. Nobody was going to outwork me. You may be smarter than me, but you were not going to outwork me. And so I put in the work for the 6 years. So I was outperforming a lot of the guys who've been there, but I didn't have the last names that they had. I worked with some Rockefellers, some Rothschilds. I mean, it was a different pedigree. And so when I wrote that, I was at my wit's end. I'd gone through a divorce. I'm dealing with, it was a lot. And even working as hard as I was working, I knew one thing, I wasn't going to get the benefit of the doubt. Just giving somebody the benefit of the doubt is such a treasure. And it's something that we typically just don't get. I'll give you for instance. On the Empire Board of Realtors, we got some Empire folks in the house. In fact, the president of the Empire is here. The past president is here. And I served on that board for 6 years. I chaired the real estate committee, started in commercial real estate board in 2014. And we had an event over at the Equitable Building, 100 Peachtree Street. I'm gonna give you the example I'm talking about, not getting the benefit of the doubt. Now, mind you, I've been in the business for a while, been doing pretty well. And the owner of the building, Alan, I can't think of the guy's name right now, but I'm looking at my business partner, Dexter Warrior, over there. We had an event, he allowed us to use the 18th floor for this event. And he took care of the expenses. We didn't have to pay anything, had refreshments and everything. All we had to do was return the room back the way it was. And so the thing had left, we finished, we put the tables and chairs back the way that we thought they were. And the next day, I get a call from the manager of the office building and said, Dallas, one of our tables is missing. I'm thinking to myself, okay. And she says, well, I checked the security camera, and I didn't see anybody walking out with any tables. So I'm thinking to myself, we're talking, I mean, tables bigger than these. I'm gonna steal a table. I was just kept it calm. I said, well, you know, let me come over and let me take a look at what you're talking about. And it was a simple, when we put the tables back in place, it just wasn't the exact same format how it was. Maybe it was a row of 4 instead of the row of 3. I said, oh. And that just hit me like, this woman called me thinking I stole a table? Why in the hell would I steal a table? And I'm gonna walk it back to my office, it's 4 blocks away. I mean, like, it's just as simple as the benefit of the doubt. And that's like, so I try to explain to people, like I'm the first black president of the Atlanta Commercial Board in Atlanta now. I'm the current president right now. We're in Atlanta, we're not in Iowa, Des Moines somewhere, we're in the city of Atlanta. And being still doing the first in 2023. It's kind of crazy to me. But the reality is very simple this, and I tell we've got over 2,500 members, 97% of which are white. This is one simple thing. If you don't do anything else, the next time you see a person of color, just give them the benefit of the doubt. Give them the benefit of the doubt. And trust me, for us, that'd be like giving fresh water to somebody. Because we typically don't get that. We just don't. I get pulled over by a cop asks me, whose car is this? I can tell you how many. I've been pulled over so many times. That's why I drive a Kia Telluride. I don't drive a fancy car anymore because I got tired of being pulled over by not getting the benefit of the doubt. The one thing I'd say about Hunter Hill and the tenacity of these people, never had to worry about the benefit of the doubt, ever. I was Lena and Glenn's baby boy. They knew where I came from. So I always got the benefit of the doubt. And so what I really simply want to do is restore that feeling to our neighborhood. It comes in a lot of different forms. As Pastor mentioned, some of us are talking about housing. Some of us are worried about this, some are worried about that. But the reality of it, it's all one thing. If we start with giving people the benefit of the doubt, this neighborhood is not less than. This neighborhood is better than. This neighborhood has survived despite the things that have happened to it. People are still there. I want to explain to people, MLK Hunter Street was where the rich black folks lived. It was our West Paces Ferry. T.M. Alexander lived on that street. Hank Aaron lived on that street. I bought T.M. Alexander's house 2 years ago. The idea is I'm going to redevelop it and move back into that neighborhood. Full circle for me. And the reality is very simple. Until we have people who look like me, who can afford to live anywhere they want to live, come back to the neighborhood, we're going to continue to have this issue. And I'm grateful for everybody in this room who don't look like me. I'm grateful for you to be here. But the reality of it is simply this: give us the benefit of the doubt. This is a neighborhood not just worth saving. This is a neighborhood that will save this city. Because they did it before. And I should have warned you, I'm an emotional person. I cry a lot. That's just what I do. So don't, it's not. But this is so surreal to me. My friend here, if you hadn't noticed, he's white. I love John. So John and I have known each other professionally. I was in the middle of looking for a house. I got to tell this story. And so we were at a cocktail somewhere in Buckhead, doing one of those smooths, "Yeah, good to see you too," kind of thing. He says he's looking for a house. I said, "I'm looking for a house too." He said, "Well, I'm moving to Sunset." And he, mind you, he was Mr. Buckhead. So I'm thinking, is there a Sunset in Buckhead? I'm from Atlanta, but I don't remember a Sunset on. He said, "No, where Dr. King was, where Dr. King lived." And I looked at my wife, and my wife's not from Atlanta. She's from Danville, Illinois, so she has no clue about any of this. I said, "Babe, we've got to go look at my old neighborhood." I said, my wife's like, "Okay." Then confirmation later, Jerry Riley, who lives in Dr. McClendon's old house, I happened to end up sitting next to him at an event for the Atlanta Chamber, and he tells me he lives on MLK, Dr. McClendon's old house. So now it's like God's pushing me back to this neighborhood, and I could not shake it. I couldn't shake it. But the house that I wanted, the woman who owned it, one day she's going to sell it, the next day she's not going to sell it. She kept going back and forth. That's how I ended up in East Atlanta right now. That's a whole nother conversation. But I'm there, but finally we were able to buy the house. But it's taken 2 years to get it rezoned because the lot was 3 lots. It's a whole nother conversation. But I'm hoping to be turning bricks and shovels in the ground within a month. I'm excited. Even in the condition the house is now, the only way I can explain it to you, when I'm on that piece of property, it's peace. It's peace. It's about being home. And so my commitment to you is Sylvia Russell was the one who twisted my arm to get on the board. This was not what I was going to do. But everything has a reason and a purpose. And I'm so grateful. I'm grateful to Dan Cathy and Arthur Blank for their vision. And I know it's time for us to wrap this up because I talk too much, so I apologize. But I just want to say thank you, and we're grateful. I'm grateful.
Yeah. And I want to hit it, so as we're about to move to our table break, but say again, the benefit of the doubt.
Just give people the benefit of the doubt.
Give people the benefit of the doubt. So part of my own why, because you imagine a person like me could be nervous about moving on to Sunset in Vine City. An Atlanta native. But part of my own, back to miracles, my own why and the benefit of the doubt was my uncle was one that organized the March on Washington. And he spoke before Dr. King. And I didn't learn of that connection until much later in my life. And that led me on to this feeling like this connection, right? And what I really learned from Dr. King, and the whole civil rights movement conducted the way it was conducted, is despite the viciousness and the killing by white people, just for the promise of living under equality, that white people still got the benefit of the doubt. And led through love. So that gave me the safety that I'm moving to that neighborhood and into that spirit, which has been true. And so I take a lot of inspiration from it. So thank you for sharing that story. And what we're going to do now is take about a 10-minute for y'all to go around the table. We'd ask for y'all to self-introduce around the table, your name, where you're from, so you can all know each other, and then just talk about whatever you'd like to talk about. And we've got about 10 minutes or so. When we come out of the table break, then we're going to take questions from you. And so Candace Wheeler will be back with the mic. And if you have a question to ask me or Dallas, but I'm sure, I have a hunch which way the questions will go, which is terrific. Raise your hand after the break, and we'll take Q&A till about 5 to 9. Does that work? So, yeah, I don't know if we have any table break music, but we're now going to the table break. All right.
We might need to shorten table.
Attention, everybody. We're going to shorten our break to 5 minutes. Thank you. Excuse me, everybody. Can you please return to your seats? Thank you.
All right. All right, well, we're ready. We want to make sure we get some... All right, well, hello, everyone. Welcome. Well, I guess we're all still here, but, you know, back to coming together as a group. So I hope that that table talk worked. And again, we'd love for your feedback on how you think this is working. And again, back to those miracles of connection that we want to foster in the summit. So please give us that feedback. But now, I'm excited. We've got about 10 minutes or so to do Q&A from the audience. And so y'all don't, I've asked Candace Wheeler, raise your hand, and she'll go to someone to ask a question. And when you ask your question, make sure you kind of hold the mic close to your mouth so it picks you up. So I see quite a few hands, Candace, so I'll let you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Jeffrey Hicks. I'm a real estate broker here in Atlanta, Dallas. I'm a native Atlantan. Everybody likes to brag about being a Grady baby. I was born at McClendon Hospital.
There we go.
My mama had 6 babies at McClendon, and I actually wound up marrying a McClendon because they was from Washington, Georgia.
Oh, wow.
My question to you is this. When Hank Aaron moved over on Adams Drive, real estate brokers said, and customers always said, hey, let's get a house over there by Hank. Show me something over there by Hank. That's how kind of Cascade got built up.
Yeah.
I'm so proud that you bought T.M. Alexander's home. He was a former president of the Empire Board of Realtors. Do you think that us more professionals like yourself, and are you seeing more professionals, or do you have friends that are moving back to Hunter Hills and Dixie Hills and Vine City? Do you see that as a momentum for black professionals who followed whites to the suburbs, having the inclination to move back in the city? And then what can we do to encourage that?
Yeah, I can't call the brother's name, but he literally just bought a house. Clay may know. He owns the Shake Shack in the airport. Hazelton, Randy Hazelton. So Randy just bought a house right near the Beltline as well. So we have these conversations like Randy could afford to live wherever he wants to live. But the reality of it is very simple. I've lived in, Smyrna, Powder Springs. I mean, like literally, East Atlanta. I'm full circle because the reality, I look back and I say, when did I have it the best? It was when I was in Hunter Hill. And so it's just what I was talking about when I'm on that property. Even in the condition it is now, I feel at home. And there's something about that roof and that feeling. So for people who have been like me, they've been all over the place and realize I'll tell you this, the day I moved in, the woman said, hey, is the guy still there? He said it was a couch he was going to let me have. I said, no, he's gone. I said, but the couch is there. She said, I said, you can have it. She said, I can? I said, yeah, you can have it. She said, well, I don't know how to get it to. I said, well, I had Leonte come bring his truck. We brought the couch to her. And she said, thank you, baby. She said, I'm going to make you a plate. And I looked at her, I said, you are the reason I'm moving back to this neighborhood. That kind of thing happened all the time in my old neighborhood. So I think we're getting to the point we missed that.
Thank you. My name is Beverly Rice, and I was really impressed by the pages that you read, the parts of the book. I too am a writer, and I believe that everybody has a story to tell. I'm also enlightened by the fact that you're moving back into the community. I live in southwest part of Atlanta off Martin Luther King. And what I have found, there are a lot of whites moving back into our neighborhood. Of course, most of the property is like half an acre or more. And so the houses are really, really nice. Even compared to Buckhead, there are really nice houses over there. But I have one question. I want to know, where does a young person, 40 years old and younger, how can they find a place to live? How can they find a house in Atlanta or just anywhere? It's so hard.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you two things. One is get connected to an Empire Board of Realtors broker that can help you. Number two, come to the Westside Future Fund. Maybe y'all don't know this, but there are some down payment situations where there's $60,000 assistance in down payment. So this is in the West Side. These are opportunities available to us now. And one of the things John and I, and what we've been talking about is just really getting the message out for these resources that we have within the Westside Future Fund. So it's out there. Get you a good broker, and they can help you. Oh, you're more than welcome.
Good morning. My name is Reverend Leroy Wright. My question to you is, I heard you talk about the clipboard that these guys had. And one of the things I heard that you mentioned was Morehouse. Okay, I'm a Morehouse grad. I didn't know who Morehouse was. Okay, I was in high school and I took the SAT and I scored like 800. And the counselor said, well, sons, everybody's not destined for college. Go to a trade school. So I took it again and I scored higher, and then Morehouse gave me a tuition scholarship. And she said, Morehouse, her eyes lit up. And I never even heard of it. So what did it mean to you on this clipboard to see Morehouse?
Well, on the vision wall, they had these Morehouse pennants. Both of my parents, neither one of them graduated from college. So I'm the first in my family to graduate from college, first generation. But what it meant to me was I needed to stretch. It was a scripture that talks about making sure you surround yourself. Iron sharpens iron just as one person sharpens another. What they did for me was sharpen me. I had to stretch. And that's what it meant to me at the end of the day. I didn't go to Morehouse. I went to Tennessee State first. Because literally everybody at Lakeshore went to Morehouse. And in my head, I was like, I don't want to go to grade 13. I want to be a freshman in college. It's because I would have been in the class with everybody, the same people. So I ended up going to Tennessee State for 2 years, but I came back home. I graduated from Georgia State. I had too much fun at Tennessee State.
Greetings. My name is Tracy Bates, and I'm a servant on the Westside, and I'm fortunate to be a resident as well. One of the things that I think the challenge, and it is for all of us in this room, is because the neighborhoods you grew up in and the ecosystem you grew up with, our commonality was our struggle. You didn't know we were relegated to the West Side, but that was the condition. But the community, and I believe in community, and community includes us all. And so what I see as a challenge that we have a John Ahmann on Sunset, it stretched the mind of the community of what the community really can be. And so if we come in, whoever you are, to do the work of the community, then we can restore that feeling, but it won't look the same. That's what we have to face as reality, because all the people who moved out, the white flight, they want to come back too. Yeah. But what has happened all around the world and within our suburbs is that they don't have the sense of community. And on the West Side, the West Side, the best side,
that's right.
We got that sense of community.
Yes.
We have all people in our community.
Yes.
And we want to make sure we can ensure the least of the community members can still reside in our community, because there is a spirit there.
Amen.
That is restored unto us, and it stretches our imagination.
Yes. No, I love it.
That wasn't a question, sorry.
No, it's a hell of a statement. But I will say, you said it was the mindset of us being relegated. Now at 60, I realize it was the privilege of being in that community.
Maria Supportive Report. How are you? I'm going to pick up on something that Reverend Winston Taylor said about how people have different views of what the issue is, and that there's some folks who think it's housing, some folks who think it's preservation, and he was looking straight at me when he said that. In your vision of moving back to Hunter Street, Martin Luther King, what is the role that everyone can play, that we don't have to be thinking in silos, we don't have to be thinking in race, but what is the vision that we can all come together and really restore and revitalize the whole MLK corridor?
I think it's the old adage, the 5 blind men, they were all touching an elephant. And one says, well, this is the water hose. The other one says, no, it's a tree trunk. The other says, no, it's a wall. One says, no, it's a brush. The reality of it, we're all talking about the same elephant. And if we take care of the pieces that we feel drawn to, they will all work together. We just I don't have to be running the same race that Pastor's doing because he feels he needs to do this. The one who needs to do preservation, do this. So I'm over time again. So I'm sorry.
Well, I know, and we are mindful because we know people set clocks in right around 9 o'clock. So we're going to we're going to say thank you for the questions, and this is an amazing discussion, and I know we want to continue it, Dallas, so to come back for more summits.
Oh, I'd love to do it. Yeah.
And I think, close. I really appreciate your comments, Tracy. And I think, building on what you said too, is what kind of community are we going to build, right? And what I've really appreciated is that some people go to a community because they love the golf course. Some people go to a community because they love the mountains. Some people go to a community because they love the beach, right? I love coming to the Westside because I love justice. And the heart of the Westside, the love, and Mother Moore, who I know you're close to, it took me a while to get used to when she and I could have, along with others, vigorous discussions, but she would always end the discussion with, I love you. And it took me a bit to say I love you back because I realized that heart of community, that we all love one another as God sees us and loves. So I really appreciate that and appreciate you giving voice to that today. So let's say thank you to Dallas for a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you want any final words as you exit stage left?
I just want you to know I love you. And I'm grateful to be a part of this community. It's a privilege, not a burden. It's a privilege. And
all right. All right. Well, we're gonna wind up with our co-host Candace. Come on back. We're doing a little traffic control here, but I know one of the things we want to do is the raffles, right? And do we have someone gonna? Are we ready to grab? So we have 3 raffles this morning. We have the Home Depot gift card, we have the Goodwill gift card, and he's already signed it. We're raffling Dallas's book, which is some of what you heard this morning is in this book. It's really a very powerful read. So the first raffle is for
Home Depot Foundation. Yes, so that would be the red ticket. So 3991048. 3991048. No? Okay. I got one more here. 3991045. 3991045. Okay. We have one more red one. 3991049. Okay. Come on down. Come get your gift card.
It's a miracle.
And if you could turn right there. Yep, right here. Right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Thank you.
Okay, and now it's time for our Goodwill of North Georgia giveaway. So those would be your blue tickets. 130667. Oh! Excellent. You just turn. Here's your gift card. No, you can have it. And then, as John mentioned, our giveaway.
Yeah, so, all right, Dallas's pre-signed book, all right.
John, will you pull a white ticket? It has not yet been signed, but it will be.
Is the right ticket?
Yep.
3140194. 3140194. Oh, all right.
That's
We're
okay.
having to work for it this morning. 314, is this 0191?
Okay. Congratulations. Very good. I'm sorry, I missed my mark.
So as we move out, someone who's been moving around covering the West, I knew you covered the West Side before you took the role at the West Side Future. Any reflections from you this morning, like any wow moments for you, or Anything you really spoke to you?
I think it's just such a powerful story and conversation that we got to hear today. It's sort of a bridging, the experience in T. Dallas and then with John and him moving into this community and leading the Westside Future Fund. And so just such an authentic, powerful, lived experience. I think we can all take a lot away from today.
All right. Right, and as we go out, that powerful lived experience, that miracle is that we're alive today and can be one another. So thank you for being here this morning, and we hope to see you back for our next summit,
Yes,
the third
August
Friday
18th.
in August.
Yes, August 18th with Danny Shoy from the Arthur M. Blank Family Foundation. So we're excited to see you all there. Thank you so much for coming out this morning.
All right.